This is Shimelle with this week's sketch to scrapbook page, and I just wanted to show you where I was starting. This is what the sketch looks like when I get started. I'm just doodling it on a piece of paper and make a few notes. So I know I wanted one big photo. I know there's going to be a block here with a title and a journaling box, and I'm going to do some bits with a mix of pattern paper scraps across the center there. So that's where I'm starting. I've got one big photo printed out and ready to go with the craft cardstock, and then I've just pulled a bunch of scraps. Nothing here is whole sheets, so you can see where I'm going, and I may use some of these, all of these, but that's where I'm starting. And I've also got these stamps that I've been using throughout this album, so they may go somewhere in that mix. So I'm starting by adhering the photo, and I like working with enlargements because they actually make the pages come together quite quickly, and it's nice to have the bit of a change when you turn the pages in the album from something that has small photos to something big and bold. Then I'm going to have a border that's at the very bottom of the page that goes all the way across, so I'm just measuring and marking with my finger where I'm going to trim the polka dotted green paper. And then I'll measure it against the picture for the other dimension. And just trim that and line it up at the bottom. Then I know how much space I have to fill in the middle. The space in the middle I'm going to fill with squares punched from a variety of different papers I pulled from my stash. And I'm using an 1.5 inch square punch here. And I'm just going to punch each square in a different pattern and line them up to go all the way across the page. The papers are a mix of Cosmo Cricut, American Crafts, and crepe paper. I also added one tiny little strip of the polka dot to go above the squares. Just thought that was a little bit smoother transition from the photo to the scrapped border. And I'm adding brown distress ink to everything. You'll see this is probably the thing I spend the most time on in my layouts. So if you don't ink, you'll be able to put your page together much quicker. I do like the way that the brown ink can make things just have a little bit more finish, and I find that if I'm using papers from more than one manufacturer, by adding the ink to the edges, it's just a little something to bring them all together in case the colors aren't exactly spot on, or there's something about the designs that isn't quite perfect. So then I'll start adhering these from the photo down, so I start with the really thin border strip. I'm using This to That Permanent Dots Adhesive by American Crafts. You can use whatever you like. And I'll start with the squares. And I changed sides here so that I can make sure I get them lined up at the end. There is a gap where I didn't add a square underneath where the title's going to go. And then that bottom strip, except now it's a bit too long, so I'm just going to trim that again so that I can have the equal frame of the craft cardstock go all the way around the layout. And that's the pattern paper base done. So now I'm going to work on the title block. I'm using a crepe paper with a graph design. It's from the Emma Shop collection for the base of the title, and then American Crafts stickers to spell out the wording. And what I'm doing is just placing these really lightly so that I can see exactly how much room I need. And then once I can see that, I'm going to take the last letter off. And now I know where I need to trim the box so that the last letter will go just off the edge, like the first letter does. And this paper has lines in the design, so I could just follow the lines and cut it with my scissors. Otherwise, I'd stick it on the paper trimmer. And then I'm going to ink the edges on this as well. And I'm going to mat this with the brown diagonal, but I can put that S back on so I can see how much room I need. And because this has the letters hanging off the edge, so I can't do it on the trimmer, with the title already adhered. I just mark with a pen where I need to cut, and then it's easier to cut that way on the trimmer than trying to deal with the thickness of the lettering. So ink the edges of this and adhere the two layers together so that I'll have the matted title. Because the aqua is what I used for the title, I decided I didn't want that to be the block that showed on the right hand side there. So just swap these two, and now the aqua square that I punched is going to get covered up anyway. So I'm just going to find the placement, and I haven't pressed this down yet, and I'm marking with a pencil the edges of this because I want to add a little border that goes underneath. So take this away for a minute, and then I have some paint that I've mixed up. To make this, I just started with some acrylic paint in green, and then I added glimmer mist in a spring green and the orange tiger lily to get a color that would be quite close to the green pattern paper here at the bottom. And I just spray the glimmer mist into the acrylic paint and then mix it up, and it thins the acrylic down a little bit and also gives it a slight shimmer, and so it's just a little bit of a different look than the heaviness of acrylic paint. You can see it's a bit more translucent when you paint it on. So I'm just painting around the area where that where the title block is going to go so that this will be underneath. Now that it's dry, I'll go ahead and adhere the title. And I also added a few little sprinkles of turquoise glimmer mist over there on the right hand side as well. Now I'm going to finish with a title with smaller letter stickers. These are the mini market stickers from October Afternoon. Just to give a bit more detail that it's not just random dolphins, but where we saw them. These are dolphins that we saw in New Zealand. And then I want to include a bit more embellishment. I've got one of these cameras that I cut out from the Studio Calico paper I've been using quite a lot. And I think it will look better there on the left than it will overcrowding the title. So I was also going to add a stamped strip, and I started with the travel themed stamps that I've been using, but I couldn't find anything that was quite right. So I've actually swapped over to another set. This is the photography set from Ali Edwards for Technic Tuesday. And there's one with just a really simple border with phrases about taking pictures. So I've stamped that in brown ink on the same aqua crepe paper design. And then I'm just trimming that down to a little strip. It's going to go to the right of the camera. I'm just going to place that over the join of the squares and the polka dot pattern paper. Then I'm going to put the camera on pop dots so that it's lifted up a little bit from the page. And then I think it would look best with a little bit more of the aqua paper on the other side of the camera, like that border strip didn't just stop there. So I've just cut a tiny little bit more, and we'll add that at the side there and trim off the extra. I knew I wanted to add a little bit more embellishment around that camera, so I pulled a few label stickers and then some sparkly things. I had just a few turquoise rhinestones that were a good match to the turquoise of the photograph. So I've added those, and then I had these glass embellishments. They're a bit like pebbles, but with a design at the bottom by Prima. And they fit on a pink circle that's punched with the Martha Stewart punch. So I punched some more of the aqua paper, and I'm going to line these up on the joins of the squares in the border. This wasn't on the original sketch. I just thought it was looking a little bit too plain for me, so I've added the circles in between the squares. I'm just picking different stone patterns that complement the colors. There's two that are turquoise, but not three, so I went with a contrast with the purple in the middle. and then just adhering these so they're centered on those lines. And this one ends up underneath the camera a little bit, so but it doesn't pick it up any more than the pop dot, so it all works quite well there. And then I've got 2 spaces for journaling. I can journal on the label sticker by the camera and underneath the title. And I'm just picking that same paint back up, and this time just sprinkling a few little drops of the paint around the embellishment so that it will match. And here's the finished layout with the journaling. This is this week's sketch, so I hope you'll join me. You can see more details at shimelle.com. Thanks for watching.